much for coming for this first attempt on the library events. And here is the place, as the slogan goes on, where the books come to life. And thank you very much for being part of this whole process, and I welcome you all for this. This is an event where we review a book. Okay, there is a person who has read the book, and there is going to be a discussion on that. And it's a book means it's a novel read by a person. So therefore, it will be more opinion expression, and there will be broad content discussion, and wherein we are going to try to understand the book. And also, it's a very good opportunity for you to make up your mind whether you want to read the book, whether it's a book of your kind. So that's the reason why this event has been organized. It's an initiative of Professor Ramrai, and Sankalp is the one who is supporting this event. And this is going to be the first book review, and the name of the book is A Long Walk to Freedom. It's an autobiography by Nelson Mandela, a South African who fought for freedom and who went through a lot of hardship and never ending imprisonment. And imprisonment doesn't mean he is confined to a room, but the room of a size where even he cannot take 2 steps. And that's the reason why it is called as a long walk to freedom. And after release also he had to undergo a long fight for freedom, and he achieved the freedom during his lifetime. And Nelson Mandela has been kind of a lesson to be learned from his life, and I hope this discussion is going to encourage you to read more and more books. And before we start, I request the next person who wants to sit here and discuss a book, please register your name. And I think one of you should volunteer. If at all any book you are reading through, read it fast, because next week we are going to have one more review. So we try to keep it weekly, and I would love if it is done by the student, and also the discussion is among the students, because I prefer it is a student initiative to work well. So with these few words, the process is simple. There will be introduction of the speakers, and then there is going to be presentation, discussion among the speakers, and then we are going to have a small discussion. You may ask questions, express your opinion on the book, and with that we are going to wind. So it's more of an informal process. So thank you very much for coming, and welcome for this program. Now I'll ask Nalin to introduce the speakers, and then we'll start with the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patil. So today we have with us 2 esteemed individuals who will steer the conversation in a thought-provoking manner. So firstly, we have with us Assistant Professor Ramrai Naik, who is a seasoned academician and who will guide us as a moderator for this discussion. And joining us with us is a distinguished guest, Mr. Sankalp Gaonkar, the President of renowned Center for Political Leadership. As we embark on this intellectual journey, let us collectively dwell into the pages of Long Walk to Freedom and explore the remarkable life and extraordinary struggles of Nelson Mandela. Okay. We extend our sincere gratitude for all of you for gracing this event with your presence. So now I would like to call upon Mr. Ramrai Naik to start with the session.
Firstly, respected head of the department, Dr. Patil sir, for joining with us for this discussion. Nalin, Phaldesai, librarian, for hosting this entire event for us, for making it possible for us to host this event. Sankalp, for being part of this being part of this discussion. And having read this book, he was the one, I had a lot of discussions with him that we should have a discussion someday. And he had suggested me a lot of books, but finally the book that we shortlisted was this, A Long Walk to Freedom. There are several reasons why we selected this book. One reason is because we always talk about lawyers turning into politicians at Center for Political Leadership. And we couldn't find a leader better than this to have our discussion. This is actually our second discussion. First discussion we had during the online mode with Professor Meghna Kapri. She had done a discussion on Nalin, the second leader that we are having a discussion on. So I thank you everyone for joining for this discussion, and also thanking the library again for making all this arrangement. Apart from this, they have also ordered a lot of books for us. Library has ordered a lot of books, and some are in the pipeline about political leaders that you will see. And we also expect, like Dr. Patil said, more and more book reviews from the students. Sankalp, Sankalp, I appreciate that it is Sankalp who is sitting there and a student who is sitting there and not a faculty or not a resource person, because it is something new. It is rather something new that a professor is interviewing a student. Even I feel better to be on the other side to do this. So once again, why this book? I had come across this book much. When I was in 11th standard or something, I had come across this book, but I couldn't read it fully, or I couldn't find it as easy to read. But now, because we were doing this, I once again went through the pages, almost not covered the entire book, but almost covered the book which is required for this discussion. And I found that Mandela's journey is a very fascinating one, right from his childhood, when he was born, the circumstances that he faced, to when he went to Johannesburg, the prominent city. It's not the capital city, but also the prominent city where a lot of political activism was happening in Africa. Then he joined a lot of organizations, like one of the organizations was African National Congress, which was prominent in the freedom struggle for the South Africa. And although South Africa got independence much before, but they hadn't really got a complete independence, and they had got a full freedom only in 1994 when Mandela himself became the president. So we'll go through this entire journey with Sankalp and about his experience of books. And after the discussion, we'll probably open up for you to share your comments or any suggestion or any feedback that you have for us. So my first question to Sankalp is very simple. Sankalp, why did you pick this book? Did anyone recommend to you or something?
So first of all, I was never a book geek. Like I never used to read books. I hated basically the books. Instead, I would used to watch cartoons, like many cartoons like that. But this was one person who changed my life, my perspective towards books and specifically autobiographies. It was my doctor. In Ponda, he was my knowing him. His name Dr. Dev. So every single time when I used to visit him, he was like, Sankalp, read autobiographies. Every single time. I used to tell that autobiography is not something which is not just a book, it is a tool to seek into or to look into a whole life of 60 years or maybe 70 years. So you are getting that life experience in one book. So he used to always recommend me such a books like Long Walk to Freedom. And one day, like every single time he was like, read books. So one day I decided, let's read one book only. So I started reading books. And this book specifically was a gift by my cousin. Okay, she knew that I love books, so she gifted me this book. And it is one of the best books, I must say, to read. So she gifted me this book during Bhaudi. So this is the story that how I got this book.
But not this book. This is library.
Yeah, my book is my book is like inside my bag. Not safe.
So before moving forward, there is one para that I found very interesting, and that actually encapsulate his journey and about his journey from the start and what is this apartheid movement in South Africa. So let me read. It is in chapter 11, and Mandela says, an African child is born in an African-only hospital, taken home in an African-only bus, lives in an African-only area, and attends African-only schools if he attends at all. When he grows up, he can hold African-only jobs, rent a house in an African-only townships, ride African-only trains, and be stopped at any time of the day or night, and be ordered to produce a pass, and failing which he will be arrested and thrown in jail. His life is surrounded by racist laws and regulations that cripple his growth, dim his potential, and stunt his life. So these are the kind of various challenges that Mandela had to face throughout his life and finally become a president by overcoming all these challenges. So I want to ask Sankalp, Sankalp, that what is your memorable part of the book?
Well, there was many memorable part, but one specific memorable part was his trial at Rivona. That actually two parts I must say, those are memorable. One is the one part which there was trial in Rivona. The second part when he attained actual freedom by going out of the prison. First part he was during the session. There are many dogmas like you have said, African segregation. And there was like from the childhood only when Nelson Mandela went to school, his name was something else, but teacher gave him an English name just because the simple thing that English people were not able to pronounce their names. So they were like establishing a mindset that they are superior over their own culture, like African culture. So during that session, during that court trial of his, he was the one who wore his traditional dress and went into the court. English court with his traditional dress, indicating that he is not ashamed of his culture. Because first step to attain a freedom is to embrace your culture. Because if you are not embracing it, then someone else will, try to make their culture superior, like British. They come to India, now see our clothes. We are not wearing Indian clothes anymore. We are wearing Western clothes. Because their ideas are imbibed in our way of life. So this was one of the changing movement, I must say, one of the memorable movement, where Nelson Mandela, at least during the trial only, he wear some African thing, like his own culture. The second thing which I must say was memorable was his freedom. He was released after 27 years, after 27 years of imprisonment, he was finally released. That time, when he walked, like he was going to his car, the prison was inside and this was watched. He was going to the car, but so many people suggested he should come down a car and walk out from the prison cell. So the moment when now I am explaining this thing, you might not feel that much gravity here. But when you read this book and when you specifically go to that chapter called freedom, you will understand what is the price of that freedom. How one feels. I was like overwhelmed by reading that one particular sentence when you take a step outside that particular prison. So you will feel that. And one of the moment was that when he just stepped outside, one iron rod was pushed to his face like this. So he was scared what it was. And see how much he was enslaved that he was not knowing what it was. He asked his wife. She was like, this is microphone. So he did not knew that also. To that extent his freedom was curtailed. So these two are the most memorable moments I must say I enjoyed reading.
There is another instance that you must be remembering when Mandela lives with one of his guardians who has almost brought him up in life, and he's kind of a royal kind of a background, and that person wants Mandela to get married, and he arranged a marriage for Mandela. And Mandela is not at all happy with the marriage because he feels that he is much more to achieve in life, and on the other side he feels like obligated. Now this person has done everything for me. How can I say no to this person? And he cannot even share with that person that I know the bride that you have chosen for me. I don't want to get married right now. I mean, this is not the time for me. And he leaves the house and he actually comes to Johannesburg during that time. That is one event I think which has actually shaped him, that one decision that, to move away from his small town that he's come from, and the places, I mean the names of the places itself is one difficulty you'll find in the book. Is some words are little difficult for you to understand. This place of his is Kuzwame. I mean it is also called as Kizuwame. So there are various pronunciations. Then I found the African pronunciation. It's called Kuzwame. So Mandela going to Johannesburg was one of the events I think that shaped his life. What are some of the other events that you feel has actually changed his life?
Like there are no specific moment I must say that changed his life. His life was like gradual shift from free boy, not enslaved boy at the beginning, but a free boy in a free world, and slowly realizing the realities of the world. Then again trying to counter that realities. It was a gradual shift of his life from a free boy to kind of discriminated boy, then again a free guy. So there is no specific moment as such, but I must say there is one moment which made him believe in the legality, the law. That once he and his Indian friends they were in a hurry to go somewhere. So they, board a tram. Boarding a tram for here there is no tram, but Kolkata if you go and anywhere else in bus. Boarding a bus is such an easy task, but that time it was not because Indians were allowed to board such trams, but Africans were not allowed in their own country. So the conductor asked the Indian friend of his that Kafir are not allowed in this bus, so please put it down. Kafir means someone alien. So they were Indian friend fight back, fought back like you don't know the meaning of Kafir itself. So why you are telling this thing? And then they were taken to court basically. Police came, arrested them, and taken to court. So that time in court, the magistrate released them. So that time Mandela stated that now I believe that law is not blind. So this is one of the things which I believe Mandela was that change is that or the perspective towards law and order. So he was because the law and order itself of America was biased towards them. But by this he might have changed. If he might have little changed.
When Mandela was a child, and because he had exposure to British education, and Sankalp also mentioned that the name Nelson itself was given to him by his teacher because they couldn't pronounce the African name, so everyone was given an English name. So when he joined the English education and he would go to some of the families, another instance which I found very interesting is when he saw those people, the British children, in their own house. They would be very curious children. They would be asking questions to their parents, and their parents also would be very much obligated to answer them back. And he found that this curiosity among the British children, something very fascinating that was not there in his own house, right? So this is the kind of culture which I want in this college. The question of culturing from students about everything. So this is one thing that I found. So do you think, Sankalp, that this British education is somewhat that has actually shaped him, and it was actually a blessing in disguise for him?
Yeah, I believe it was blessing in disguise because if we see the British education itself, the very base, is questioning things. The British education itself is curious about each and every aspect. Like if we go in our history books also, who were the ones who were curious about Harappa and Mohenjo-daro? We were not one. The first the first chief of archaeological survey of India was a British guy. He was curious about it. They were curious, they researched and they showed us that this is our legacy. We have almost forgotten that our legacy. And this is not like we don't have good culture, we have more good culture. But I guess in the process we have lost something in ourselves. That this British education system has taught us. Like even Mandela, this British education system was something which gave him more liking towards his own culture. He was brought up in British culture, like not in family itself, but in school education. His culture was British, his books were British, his language was British, everything was British. So because of this particular Britishness, he started to like his own culture. He started to be like one towards his own culture, his roots. And the person who knows his roots knows everything, I must believe. And second thing, Nelson Mandela was the one who promoted education. He says that education is the only tool that can attain the real freedom, that can give a person a true freedom in his life. So I think it was a blessing in a disguise of a day for Nelson Mandela.
So one other instance, education, he valued education so much. When he went to pursue his LLB degree, he was the only African in the very prominent college of South Africa. It's called WITS or something. He was the only person, and everyone would look at him in different points of time, in different manner, right? Another thing is when Nelson Mandela used to speak about his leadership during the activism days in South Africa, Africans were being oppressed. At the same time, there was another community which was equally oppressed, and that was the Indian community. And for a long point of time, Nelson Mandela was really wondering whether we should join forces with the Indians or not. Initially, he took a stand that we should not take forces, we should not join forces with Indians. We should go on our own path. But he saw that there was a lot of resistance from the people. People actually wanted everyone to fight together, right? And across this thing, he was also inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. He met Mahatma Gandhi's son through this activism period. So he had that thing that, okay, maybe earlier I had some perception that if I'm better, it's better if I go alone on my own African journey. But he had a realization that he was wrong. So he could course correct himself and go back and then join everyone, bring everyone together on one platform and then fight for the freedom struggle. That way his freedom struggle became very cohesive force. So what are the other such leadership lessons, Sankalp, that you find interesting?
Well, on the similar lines, one of the leadership aspects was that when he was in prison, these people, these white people, used to treat him very badly. Not in also prison, but even in day-to-day life, they were treated as secondary citizens. And not even secondary citizens, they were treated like animals in general. But despite this fact, when he became president, he had all power. So he would have been just like, I am giving you 5 days, go out from my country. He can do that easily. He was able to do that easily. But he somehow digested that bitterness. Because he himself has quoted once, in his interview, the one who was taking the interview asked him, how you tackle the bitterness? Because these people have tortured you throughout your life, right from the beginning. And still, you are not the one who is having such a power, not throwing them out of your country or not subjugating them. So he was like, my fight was not against whites. My fight was against oppression. And this is one of the best things I must say we must adopt. Like we should also fight against all kind of oppression rather than fighting against a particular entity.
So focus on issues than the person.
Rather than the person, because if you focus on that person, it will continue again. Like it will go again and again, same thing will happen. Like previously, if whites were ruling, this time Africans will rule. And when Africans started to do this attachar and all, then some other person will do the same thing. And this thing is like prevalent in the society. If we see, I'm deviating from this subject, but it is important to note that during the Nazi period, Jews were very tortured. They were tortured like anything. And now, when they have found their own country of Israel, they are doing the same thing with Palestinians, if we have seen. So we have to first digest that bitterness. We have to take that bitterness and destroy it completely from the roots. So we should try to not be the abusers are turning into the abused are turning into abusers. So this one of the things I learned from him, that live for a cause rather than living for just simple feudal tension between two people.
If I can just elaborate the point about Israelis. There were a lot of Israelis also in South Africa who were very sympathetic to his cause because they knew the kind of oppression they faced on their own region. So a lot of Israelis would support him. They would actually donate for his cause. Actually gave him the employment also when he was conducting a law service. So Israelis have been very supportive to him. So going back, Sankalp, to the prison time, you mentioned and we know that Mandela spent around 27 years, not all involved, but he spent 27 years in a very harsh condition, like Dr. Patil has mentioned. So how did he cope up with all this time, all the time?
First of all, there was prison was really hard for him, but there was certain things which he used to do, he used to do regular exercises, he used to try to do regular exercises to keep himself fit. Because Nelson Mandela himself was a boxer. Many people might not know him, because he loved boxing. When he joined boxing, his purpose was not to pursue boxing, but to keep himself fit. So he used to do a little bit of exercise. Plus, he was a revolutionary. So revolution did not end itself by his imprisonment. It started from there. So what this Africans, prison guards used to do, there was one quarry, land quarry. So these people were required, prisoners were required to dig over there. So what they used to tell them, run from the prison cell, it was like some 200 meters or something distance, 200 to 500 meters. So they used to ask them to run from that prison to the quarry and then start digging over there with hard labor. And then at the end, in the evening, again the same process, they were required to run from that area. So see, you are tired and they are asking you to run. So Nelson Mandela was the one who protested against this particular thing. He said we will go there, but we are not not going to run. They are not going to follow your orders. So he was a revolutionary over there, but his demand was not fulfilled at that time. But gradually they started to give them concession. And to know the gravity of this particular event, just imagine people used to faint in between the running. So it was that hard during that time. Secondly, they used to, there was no proper toilets. Like in a prison cell, there used to be one bucket, and that is their toilet. Basically, they have to do it there only. So again, inhuman conditions. But there was one specific thing which Mandela himself says that he has given a new perspective. Like he says that prison outside the world, they were in a rush to do something or certain thing. But inside prison, they had free time to think, to argue, to explore the possibilities of philosophy and other fields. So in the prison itself, these fellow beings, there were many Africans, Indians also, they used to discuss on different aspects. So this thing helped him to cope up with this thing. One of the interesting incident, which if you are reading, you will get more interest of it, that there was a discussion that tigers are not native to this Africa. They are not there in Africa. They are only Indian subcontinent. So they were discussing that there is a reference in the text of the ancient text of these tigers. There must be a tiger in this. Even Nelson Mandela said the language in Josa. So he said that in Josa there is one term specifically for tigers. So there is a possibility that tigers were there in this subcontinent. But there was one Indian friend of his name was Meg Maharaja. He said that see, in ancient Indian text, there is also one specific name for aeroplane. So you cannot say aeroplane. You can also say that aeroplane was also there in ancient India. So when you read this stuff, it gives you like little bit of happiness in those painful days. So I guess because of these things, he was able to cope up the prison life.
Absolutely. When you read this thing, another interesting thing that you will come across is Nelson Mandela is as much human as we all are, right?
Yeah.
He did the same mistake that we all do. He faced the same lack of confidence issue, inferiority complex, lack of security. He couldn't speak good English. He didn't have, for him the BA degree was everything before he actually finally got it. And then he realized not everything in life, right? Because he saw a lot of people without any degree doing well for themselves. So he had a lot of weaknesses and a lot of underconfidence issues. Also, he also knew some of his shortcomings. Like he would defeat, he would go beyond the same people who have actually helped him, who have given him employment, and go behind them for political reasons. Because he felt that even though these people have actually helped me, what Africa needs is something, South Africa needs much more. So sometimes even going beyond these people is even necessary. So what are those some points, Sankalp, that you find are critical of Nelson Mandela that you
There is nothing much to be critical of him because he is a very nice guy. But one thing I must say that his ability itself or his skill or his what we can say his advantage itself was kind of a disadvantage for him because he was not a static leader like we will do this, these are my ideas, I will stick to these ideas. No, he was an experimenting leader. So at beginning he adopted non-violent ways, okay, and he was doing it very well, but there was no result. So he went to violent ways. Started to do sabotaging and everything. So I think this advantage of adopting different things led him to a path which many people won't be more favorable because there are many disadvantages of being non-violent also. So this experimentation of him was a little bit of critical, but it was fine, I guess. So there was not much thing to criticize about him. Except one, I remember now. It is an instance when, it is not referred in the book, it is like outside information, that during that time when there was election of president, he wanted to be president, his wife was when people accused his wife of kidnapping and murder, okay? So because of that, the couple decided to part their ways because in election, this will be one of the negative points of a person who has struggled for 27 years. And if he counted in his educational way, 47 years. He struggled so much and the goal was right in front of him. And if wife was a negative point for it in election. So he was not a good husband. For the attempt to that goal, he left his wife, and not like he himself said, I don't want you. The wife himself, she was also like, I won't be in between your goal. So we will part our ways. And again, in this process, he was also not a good father.
You are referring to Winnie Mandela. She was actually known as the mother of South Africa. He was the father of South Africa. She was a mother. Because he was fight because they fought the activism throughout. Right. So second last question, Sankalp, is how is the book to read? Is it interesting? Is it difficult to read? Is it a page turner? How do you find it?
It is I'm not going to say that it is a fabulous book to read because it is too lengthy. Okay? So in order to read it, there is two methods. You can read it in one go. In 4 days you can finish it. If you are giving 24 into 7 attention, you can finish this in 4 days. But I have not finished in 4 days. Why I am saying in 4 days? Because I have finished one book similar length in 4 days. I am saying 4 days. But if you are a slow learner, try to read chapters. Okay? So it is a perfect book to understand. Like
Johannesburg is a very interesting chapter.
yeah, it is.
First chapters are a little bit difficult, I know.
Yeah, it is. But I don't think they are kind of difficult because they are like kind of advantageous for you because you are getting a life story. So it is not something.
Absolutely. Last question, Sankalp. Why should all of these people, law students, should read the book?
Very first thing I must say, this book helped me in developing confidence. Okay, if you are reading, when you read basically any book, you read as third person perspective. Here, in this book, you are getting first person perspective. So when you read, when whatever Mandela has done, you read like, I will protest or I will go against this establishment. So you are getting that first person perspective. So basically you are getting 60 years of Nelson Mandela or more than 60 years I must say. So you are developing that confidence of rebellion to rebel against each and everything. That is the first point. Second point, I must say that this book will show you the oppression, like how oppressed feels in our society itself. If we see in our society also there is inequality. In our Indian society itself there is rich and poor. There is upper and lower. It is there. So you can, by reading this book, you can feel the plight of those lower people. So next time when you meet any of the people, you will be more human rather than being proud of something which is not there. These two things I must tell you that this will improve in yourself by reading this book.
Okay. So we'll stop here. If you want, anyone has any questions or any observation or some suggestion to us, you're welcome to do so. Anyone?
Yeah. Anybody? You can express your opinion also.
You can also tell us what we can do better next time. Yes?
How has the Satyagraha movement in India impacted Nelson Mandela?
Well, the concept of not Satyagraha itself, because Mahatma Gandhi also started Satyagraha in Africa itself. So many people in Africa, those were commoners, they used to use these non-violent methods. Okay? So Mandela also used these non-violent methods throughout his life until he found that these methods might not be that beneficial for him. So he started a different organization altogether, the Spear of Nation, which was a violent organization. So yeah, he used non-violent ways in several protests itself. It was kind of,
Let me take that question. So Mandela himself was not really more so influenced by the Africans, but more so Indians. When he was just when he was working in the law firm, he was seeing a lot of these Indians mobilizing together, right? But he wasn't seeing the same kind of unity among themselves. So he was like, what really inspired these people? Then he came across Gandhi's idea about non-violence and all that. I mean, I also told you that he also came across Mahatma Gandhi's son who was staying there. We used to speak with him constantly about Mahatma Gandhi's idea, and Mandela did not want to pursue it. He was actually, like Sankalp is saying, he was not concrete about anything. He was going from one place to another, from violence to non-violence. earlier he did not wanted Indians, then he wanted Indians. So he's a very constantly changing kind of a very dynamic kind of a person that you found.
That's a very important confession which Mandela has made about his decisions going wrong
Yeah.
and correcting himself. I think that's again my experiment with Mahatma Gandhi is also, it's actually a book of confessions
Yes.
where he has actually how he's trying to stay with the truth as told now. Now Mandela, you have mentioned about this confession. Any other confessions are there worth mentioning where he changed himself? He stood corrected. Anything else is there worth mentioning? Because one point that you mentioned is he changed from non-violence to other means.
So
Once again he changed his position.
one thing which was there is, like I told you, he used to stay with his guardian, and that was a region, means almost a very prominent position in South Africa. So this is the person who has seen Africa, has given him a very good education, a very good life early on during his young years. And it was Nelson Mandela who actually abandoned him. He could not speak to him about that I don't want to get married right now, right? And he abandoned him for throughout his life. But finally, when Mandela was doing well for himself, he was into a long form, and the region knew about it, and region was a very powerful person, and he came to meet him. Then he came to meet him much later in his life, and 6 months later, region passes away. So on his funeral, what Mandela says is, I am happy that region came to meet me before his death. Because if he had not come to meet me, I would have thought that he had always abandoned me. Although I was the person who had abandoned him for doing so much. But I knew that he is the one who has not given up on me and still came to meet me. So I think that was one thing that was change of, he still was a very, at heart he wanted people.
How do you rate him a politician? Good politician or hard-working politician?
I wouldn't say shrewd, but he was a hard-working kind of guy. But nothing came easily to him. It's so much very long struggle. I think in politics, most people get success very early on. But this person has almost throughout his life.
I must say he was a shrewd politician. Because why? In one of the instances he said that there was, when he was in prison, he was kind of sidelined. Okay? Because many other people were taking over the frame. So in order to fit himself in, he wrote number of letters to Prime Minister that time, challenging him in certain way. So he was like taking the charge in every single time. He was trying to take the charge from right up front. So it was kind of true.
Every politician is attention hungry, so that is there. So if anyone else has any questions, else we can wind up. Yes. So thank you everyone for joining with us today. We hope that there are much more discussions on books. We can also do audio book reviews if you want someday, right? And we have a lot of books on political leadership. We'll even get more. So once again, thank you to everyone for joining with us. I'll request everyone for a group photo, and then we can all go home. Thank you so much. Thank you.